During a family BBQ, my cousin joked about my single girl trips. My husband went pale. My name is Raina, and I'm 34 years old. This is my first time on this app, and I'm here to bare my heart, hoping that this huge pain will be lifted off my chest, if it's possible. I did something really awful, and now I don't know how to undo it. I wish so desperately that I have some sort of magic wand or a manual to handle everything. Right now, it's just so horrible, and I don't know how to fix it. During a family BBQ, my cousin, trying to lighten up the mood, had made jokes about my last trip, the one we had jokingly tagged a single girl trip. But instead of laughing at the jokes, like everyone else was, my husband went pale, and what happened afterwards was just straight hell. And has been since then, too, even though it's barely been a week, and the tension and suspense since then has been killing me. Victor, my husband, and I have been married for almost 10 years. We have 2 kids, twins, 2 boys, and they're both 9 years old. I got pregnant almost immediately after we got married. Life was pretty great from the start, and it probably would be now if I hadn't done what I did. With him. I know how awful this might sound, but I cheated on my husband. With his estranged stepbrother Jacob. It wasn't supposed to happen. The first time had been a mistake. I was drunk and I don't even remember half of what happened that night, and I should have stopped. Maybe even confided in my husband about it, and begged for forgiveness. But it was almost like a switch went off, and I just couldn't stop. I was far too into it before I realized it. When Jacob came into our lives, I was struggling. Not physically, but mentally. I felt like I had no excitement in my life, not like my friends did anyway. They were unmarried with no burden of kids or a family. I felt like I needed a break from being a wife and a mother, even though my friends envied my marriage. No woman that's married to someone like Victor would consider herself unlucky. He was kind, patient, and really loving. Our kids also adored him, and he was perfectly fine with providing everything for us, and I truly was grateful for him at the beginning. It wasn't like he stopped doing things differently over the years. He never forgot our anniversaries, the kids' birthday, mine, and any other special days. He was always trying to improve anything that needed improving. But for some reason, I just stopped feeling grateful. I started to really despise my life, and I couldn't tell anyone about it. They all thought I was perfectly happy. Maybe because I was great at pretending to be so. Even Victor, who was usually observant, couldn't see through my lies. I played my role perfectly. But when it was just me and my thoughts, I wanted to run away. Do something fun, something exciting, something I had never done before. And those thoughts of mine had ended up causing me everything. I blamed Victor at first. I kept thinking that maybe if he did things differently, I wouldn't feel that way. The monotony of our relationship was draining me mentally. I hated how we had the same routine, the same celebrations. I hated how easily I could read him. I knew the gifts he would get me just by his expression. If I wanted to get something different, I had to mention it in conversations. I didn't like how there weren't any surprises. Every trip was planned months before it ever happened, and every holiday was spent the same way, with the same people. Nothing ever changes. And it frustrated me so much. I was hoping it would change, that Victor would eventually see it the way I saw it and did something. But maybe because I pretended all was well, he kept thinking he was doing things right. Even our sex lives started to suffer from the same monotony. No new thing done. I could tell when he was about to have an orgasm by just counting under my breath. We didn't even do role-playing or anything fun, just the plain old normal way, and that was it. And years went by so fast. So I really thought that living like that was my forever. I really didn't think I had any other choice. Not until Jacob came into the picture. I promise, I never thought I would ever cheat on Victor. I truly love him, despite the odd feeling I had towards our marriage. But Jacob managed to bring out something in me that I never thought I had. A fun side of me that I thought was long dead, buried under the weight of being a married woman with kids. He was everything fun, sweet, and dangerous too, almost like too much sugar. And I know that I shouldn't have given in, but at that moment, I threw every caution in the wind and forgot what was truly important. When Jacob came into our lives, Victor was really upset. Usually not much upsets Victor, but immediately he had seen Jacob coming into our house. He had been so upset, the kids noticed. Victor and Jacob grew separately in different homes. Victor's father apparently had an affair. and for years he kept playing husband to both families without Victor's mom knowing. It was only when he died that the family knew about his kept mistress, Jacob's mother. Rosalind, Victor's had come to terms with it after a couple of months, but Victor never really healed from the betrayal. His dad had been his role model, and he hated that his father, who he trusted so much, was a cheat. I was already married to Victor when his father died. Back then, we were only 6 months married, and Victor had been so shaken. It took the birth of our kids to kick him back to life, and coming to terms with the truth eventually. But he never tried to get to know Jacob, not even once. Even when Jacob started coming around once in a while over the years, his excuse had been that he wanted to get to know his brother, because he never had one growing up. Victor didn't either, but he wanted nothing to do with Jacob. Jacob only ever came around once or twice a year. So we weren't particularly close or anything like that. But last year, Jacob suddenly told Rosalind that he had a business on our side of town, and he needed somewhere to stay for the duration of his stay. It was supposed to be a 6-month project. Rosalind thought it was a good idea for Jacob to stay with us. We had plenty of rooms in our house, and she wanted Victor to accept his brother. She spoke to me about it and begged me to convince Victor to let him stay with us. I agreed because I genuinely thought he needed to heal from the pain caused by his father. I really had no other intentions at the time. After days of trying to convince Victor, he finally gave in and allowed Jacob to stay with us. Now, I wish I had foreseen the future and rejected Rosalind's suggestion back then, but I didn't. And when Victor finally agreed, I immediately told Rosalind, and she called Jacob to inform him, before Victor changed his mind. So that was how Jacob came to live with us for those months. It was first awkward because Jacob was the very opposite of Victor. He didn't engage the kids in conversations at the table while we ate. He stayed at home all day on his laptop, and he never tried to contribute to the house, despite the fact that he was staying with us, even though Victor wasn't asking for it. He was more than capable of providing for us, and even an extra mouth. But then what was even weirder was that even though the sole purpose of his visit was to bond with Victor, the two men barely said 2 words to each other. So I tried to intervene. On weekends, I left the house with the kids, knowing that both men didn't go out during that period. And when I kept doing that for almost a month, the men started bonding better. Victor was even grateful to me for helping him overcome his initial anger and hatred towards his brother. And I was happy. The house was less tense, even though both men didn't exactly say much to each other. They at least were civil enough. The real trouble started when the kids resumed school, leaving me and Jacob alone all day except in the evenings when Victor returned from work, and then occasionally when he had to travel on some days. It left me all day with Jacob in the house. The kids always stayed with Rosalind during school days, and she lived outside town. Victor and I had agreed that they stayed with her because it was closer to the school we both handpicked. We wanted the best form of education for them, and that school really is the best bet we had. So most of the time they stayed with their grandmother and came home for holidays, or I visited them during the week that Victor would travel, and it mostly did work for us. But this time I wished that they schooled closely. Maybe having them around would have been able to jog my memory of how very married I was. We first started to spend time together. It wasn't anything much, nothing to spark any interest. We would watch a movie together, comment or argue about the characters, and then eventually he started staying in the kitchen while I cooked dinner. I liked his company. I thought that perhaps I got a friend, a new person, someone exciting. Although whenever Victor was around, he never really spoke to me, not like we did when we were alone, and when I asked why. He told me that he didn't want Victor suspecting him. We spoke about many things, and I really got to know him better. He even told me about his current girlfriend, who wasn't speaking to him at that moment because he left, even when she disagreed. He told me how tired of the relationship he was. His reason was the same as mine. She wasn't exciting anymore. She only wanted him to marry her and kept bothering him about it. And I in turn told him about my struggles, how I wasn't happy and no one understood it. He was the first person I ever told about it, and Jacob had told me he understood. He even made a joke about it. Told me that if he was probably married to Victor, he would feel the same way too. I should have felt insulted. He was literally insulting my husband, despite the fact that he made it sound like a joke. But I laughed. I laughed, and it encouraged him to say more things about Victor, things that should naturally upset me. but I was too pleased that someone finally understood my struggles. So I ignored my mind and just went along with it. I even told him how boring our sex lives had become. That was something that shifted our relationship from just plain friendship into something entirely different. Jacob started to tell me that he wished he was my husband, and somehow I started to imagine it too. I didn't even think that I was walking into a trap, because ever since I mentioned our sex life to Jacob, he started telling me his own experiences, explaining explicitly how sex had been for him. He even bragged about his married ex who begged him to have an affair with him. It was how good he was at pleasing his partner, he said. And he probably said those things to spike my interest in him. And stupid me started to imagine what it would be like if I really did have sex with him. His sexual encounters that he told me made me crave something like that. It didn't help matters that Victor had been my first and only boyfriend. And we dated for a year before we quickly got married. He had been my first in everything. So hearing about another person's sexual life, which seemed totally different from mine, was hard for me. And Jacob played along too. He must have known I was getting sexually attracted to him because he started wearing just his underwear around the house whenever we were together. It was difficult to watch, and I tried really hard to resist him, but my resistance wasn't stronger than my sexual urges, because I found myself crawling into bed with him one night. That day, I gave in willingly to the urge. Victor had a business meeting out of town and decided to stop and see the kids. He didn't plan to spend the night out of town, but it was late by the time he finished his meeting and he couldn't drive back home because it wasn't safe. So he decided to just spend the night at his mother's place and then drive back home in the afternoon of the following day so he could spend the morning with the kids. But then that night, Jacob invited me to his room to share a bottle of wine he apparently brought with him. I hesitated. I really did, but Jacob sounded so convincing, and I found myself in his room and on the only chair in his room, sipping wine in a plastic cup. Jacob wore close to nothing as usual, and because of how I was feeling, I kept drinking the wine, just to calm myself. And the wine tasted amazing, so it wasn't difficult to gulp down fast. So after 3 cups, I was highly intoxicated, and I can barely remember anything that Jacob said afterwards. But I knew I found myself crawling into his bed and letting him remove my nightgown. When I woke up the next morning, I was truly horrified by what I had done, so I left his room and ran to mine. I felt guilty, and yet really good. I couldn't remember half of what had happened between us, but I knew he didn't force me into bed with him. But then my body ached in a different way that it never had before, but it wasn't a painful one, more of a satisfying ache after extreme exercise. I stayed in my room all of that morning, just to avoid seeing Jacob. But I had to face him again at dinner when Victor arrived. I was so worried that Victor would find out what I had done, just from my expressions, or perhaps Jacob would tell him. But the dinner went smoothly. Jacob even joked with Victor, and he laughed. I was the only one who was tense throughout the dinner, and when we finally went to bed, Victor asked why I ate little and looked worried. I lied to him that I was just too tired and got a little headache. Victor ended up massaging my body that night and gave me some drugs for my headache. The next day, after Victor left for work, I knew I had to confront things with Jacob. I had this whole speech in my head about the other night being a mistake, how it could never happen again, and how Victor could never find out about it. But then I got to Jacob's room, and everything just flew away. He wasn't even half naked this time. He wore trousers, but immediately I saw him. I just wanted a repeat of the last time, this time fully conscious of everything. And I wanted to really know whether the ache came from the wine or if it really was what we did together. So I just removed my clothes and climbed into bed with him. And then I kissed him. Jacob needed no further encouragement after that, and he just took over. It was good, so good, like how bittersweet coffee would taste after a horrible night. And I got addicted to him pretty quick. I couldn't stop going back to him for more. He taught me everything, things I never tried before. And even the ones I did, he made it somehow better and exciting. And I convinced myself for a while that sleeping with Jacob was actually something I needed, the something fun that I had always craved. Our relationship grew deeper after that. But before we knew it, the 6 months he had to spend in our house was over, although by then we had already been sleeping together for about 4 months. But I still couldn't get enough of it. So Jacob convinced me that we could go on a trip together, back to his place, so we could spend more time together. I liked the idea, but I hesitated. I didn't know what to tell Victor. I never really traveled without him or the kids ever since we got married. So I couldn't think of anything to say. But then my chance came when my cousin came around. She called me suddenly that morning. She told me she moved back home. It was my perfect excuse. Our hometown was a bit far from where I stayed with my family, but I never really went home except with the kids and sometimes Victor. My parents and I weren't exactly on good terms. They had always preferred my siblings to me. Growing up, I had always preferred my mother's sister to her, and she was my cousin's mom. I knew that Victor couldn't come with me, not with the load of work he had on his hands, and the kids couldn't come either. They weren't on holiday. If I told Victor that I was going to see my cousin, he would expect that I would come earlier than I planned. So I lied that we were going on a girls' trip. I knew it was the only way I would avoid any suspicions, so I lied that my cousin had suggested it, to just have fun and catch up. Victor was happy to let me go. He told me that he had always wished I took some time off for myself, but any time he brought it up, I always dismissed it. It was true. I never liked traveling, except I went with my family, and it made me feel guilty, because all my excuses for cheating had always been centered around being stuck at home. So I planned that hanging out with Jacob for a full week would cure me of the rest of my addiction to him. I planned to break things off with him. I thought of it as a win-win. I will still have my family at the end of it all. Although I told my cousin that I was going away for a week, but that was only because she called and told me she wanted to come visiting. And I was still at Jacob's place, so that my lie wouldn't get revealed. I lied to her about it being about a conference for married women, and I told her that the trip was paid for. But I didn't tell her I told my husband she was coming with me. I really didn't think everything through. I remember how my cousin had laughed and told me that the conference was really an excuse, especially for women who wanted to hide somewhere instead, from their husbands and children. She jokingly nicknamed it a single girls' trip, and I played along. I laughed and joked about it too with her. Jacob and I had fun throughout the trip. He even took me to some places that I had never been to, and we had endless sex too. But by the end of the week, I told Jacob that we were done. I told him that it was better we ended things there. Jacob had been nonchalant, and it hurt me, because I didn't expect him to just accept it like that. He didn't even bother taking me to the park. He only described how I would get there, and gave me some money to go. I got home in the evening that day to a wonderful surprise. Victor was home, and he made me dinner and even bought me a cute necklace. He told me he missed me and almost called me to cut my trip short, but he didn't want to ruin my trip, and I felt really guilty. But I pushed it off. I convinced myself that everything was already over, that I was only going to concentrate on my family now and no one else. But little did I know that life had something different in stock for me. It was Easter weekend, and Victor had suggested that we do something small. I didn't want the usual dinner or lunch with the family. I wanted us to do something a little different. So when Victor suggested we had a family BBQ, I was more than happy to go with the idea. I invited everyone, my parents, my cousin, her mom, and other family members too, including Victor's family, all except one, even though Victor had told me to give Jacob a call to ask if he would be available. I didn't call him. I only lied that I did and that he couldn't make it because of work. I didn't want Jacob there, not just because I didn't want to fall back into his arms, but also because I was hurt. He never even called me or texted me to ask if I got home all right that day. We only spoke just once since that trip, and it was when Jacob called to ask if I mistakenly took his spare keys with me. I was so angry, and I just yelled at him. I was so angry about the accusations. He wasn't even calling because he missed me. So I thought I had the perfect solution to the situation. I thought it would be easy to get rid of him if he completely stopped coming around, but I didn't know that my secret was out to haunt me. A week before the family BBQ, Victor started acting really strange. He got off work late and came home only after I had fallen asleep. He left home really early, too. We barely saw each other, even though we lived together. All the dinner I made ended up in the trash bin, or I ended up eating them alone. But I made excuses for him. I chalked his behavior to work stress. I thought he would finally have time to unwind by the weekend if he saw everyone. So I put in extra effort in arranging for everything to go smoothly. Most of our family arrived a day before because of the long distance, and some arrived on that Saturday. My cousin arrived on that Saturday because she had work the day before and couldn't travel down. And together we put everything together. Victor was out buying drinks with his other cousins, and by afternoon we started the barbecue. It was really nice at first. Everybody was laughing and teasing each other, catching up on everything they've missed. Victor was silent through it all. He didn't relate much with everyone. He just watched everyone. I tried to get him to join in the fun, but he just ignored me and talked to one of his cousins. I didn't want anyone suspecting that something was wrong, so I pretended like everything was all right between us. But then, within minutes, everything just totally changed. My cousin started saying how she had wanted to come over earlier and catch up, but she couldn't because I had that thing that I went to. I was shocked and I tried to cover what she was saying, but she didn't keep quiet. She kept telling them how she was teasing me about the single girl trip I went on, said it was something ridiculous, and she didn't know why I had to go. I was so scared, especially when I saw Victor freeze. He froze and kept staring at me. I couldn't tell anything from his expression, but he just literally discovered I lied about my trip. When I moved towards him to try and explain, give some sort of excuses or something. Victor finally moved and he just left. He didn't say anything to anyone. He just left. And for the rest of the party, he didn't show up. He didn't even come home that night. Everyone kept asking me where Victor was, but I kept lying, saying everything was all right and trying to believe it too. He showed up that morning when everyone was going back to their various places. He greeted everyone normally, but he still said nothing to me. When everyone left, it was just him and me. He said nothing still. I tried to get him to talk. I wanted to explain the truth to him, but he kept his distance from me. He wouldn't even sleep in the same bed with me. I don't know what else to do. I'm terrified he has found out. Maybe he heard that phone call, or perhaps saw us together, but his behavior only changed after I came back, not while Jacob was there. The questions on my mind have been killing me, and I'm too afraid to ask. I'm scared that if he doesn't know beforehand, my questions would definitely make him know. I'm losing my mind slowly, and I don't know how to handle things anymore. Update: when I came here the last time to make a post, explaining how hard my life has been since Victor started acting odd around me, I thought that things couldn't get any worse. I desperately hoped that things would get better, and that perhaps Victor would just get over it, yell at me or ask me my reasons for lying, but things just got extremely worse. Victor had not only found out about my affair, but exposed it in the worst possible way. He didn't even confront me silently. He dragged me in front of the family. After almost a month of the silent treatment, Victor finally spoke to me. He told me that he wanted to celebrate my birthday. He said that he wanted to give me the best one I had ever had. He asked me to invite all my friends over and our families too. He didn't say anything about the lie I told about the trip. He pretended like it didn't even happen. I should have been wise enough to apologize. I should have begged him to let me explain and gravel if I had to. But I was too happy with the sudden change. I was glad he didn't ask, because it would mean lying again or worse, exposing my affair. So I kept quiet, more than willing to play happy family again. I invited everyone for the party again. Everyone except Jacob, of course. Victor had not mentioned him either, so I was glad. I almost didn't invite my cousin. I was secretly mad at her for saying the things she said at the family BBQ, but I couldn't exactly blame her. She didn't know the truth either. So I grudgingly invited her. Everything was going to be perfect. I was going to be big 35, and I spent all the money I had on getting a perfect dress. And when the day finally came, it was just perfect. Or not. Everything was going really well. People brought me gifts, and I was having the time of my life being the center of attraction. Even my kids got me a bow and a card, telling me that I was the best mom in the world. But my husband got me no gifts. Well, he told me that his gift was the highlight of the party, that he wanted to surprise me big time. All I could think of was that he finally got me the car I had been hinting that I wanted, but there was no trace of it inside the compound. I still convinced myself that it was probably being brought over, or parked at a distance, so I kept enjoying the party, until I saw someone walk in. I was so shocked when I saw him again. I couldn't even hide my shock and annoyance. But I tried to be civil. I even accepted to be hugged by him when he wished me a happy birthday. He brought no gift, of course. He probably decided his presence was enough. When I asked him why he was there, He told me that my husband had insisted he come, since he didn't show up for the family BBQ, and to avoid suspicion, he had to show up. My mood was totally ruined seeing him there, but I kept calm. It was only a day, and he would be gone again, like the selfish coward that he was. But I was in for a bigger surprise that afternoon, when Victor finally noticed that Jacob was around. His attitude changed, and then he called everyone together. He told them that he wanted everyone to witness what he had to give me as my birthday gift. I expected him to hand me a key or some box, but he instead forwarded some pictures and a video to the family group. He told everyone to watch them. I was confused but still went along with the flow, expecting some sort of special family moments compilation video, but what I saw made the blood drain from my face. I almost threw my phone away when I saw it. Right there in the family group were screenshots of my chats with Jacob, on days where I would text him right beside Victor, who is asleep, telling him I missed him, on days when we would even go as far as sending nudes to each other, even though we were right in the same house. There were even pictures of the two of us together on that trip, the one I lied to Victor about, and that video, it was one of us having sex. It was Jacob. He had convinced me to make the video with him. He said it was fun, and watching it later would be erotic. And I agreed, but on one condition, and it was if we did the video on my phone. I didn't trust him not to use the video to blackmail me eventually, especially because of my plan to end things with him after that trip. I deleted that video after the trip. I swear I had. All of those chats weren't on my phone either, but somehow everything, all the evidence was right there for everyone to see. Victor smiled wickedly when he saw my expression. His words to me that day were, "It took me a month, but I found it. I found the evidence of your affair." I couldn't say a word. I just kept crying. Everybody kept saying things to me, but I wasn't listening to any of them, not with Victor standing there and looking at me with those eyes. It was easy to see what he felt. Hatred. Pure hatred and disgust. He had watched me for a month, played house with me just to reveal my dirty secret to the world. Everyone started leaving. Jacob left first, ran out like the coward that he was. The party was over. My mom was so upset and kept screaming things at me. My dad just let her out of there. My cousin went with them. And gradually everyone started leaving. Rosalind told me that I was a disgrace, and then she took the kids with her and left too. Within an hour, everybody was gone, leaving me to my nemesis. I didn't know how to react. I was so scared. I didn't know what to say to Victor, or how to say it. But Victor decided for me. He handed me his second gift, divorce papers, and a custody lawsuit. He wanted to take the kids away from me, and he wanted me to move out that evening. He told me he was too disgusted by me to spend another second with me. I tried pleading with him to hear me out, to forgive me. I couldn't live without them, he and the kids, but Victor was done with me. I knelt and cried hard, but Victor just stepped aside and left me there. My life was over in the space of minutes, all because of the stupid decisions I made. I didn't even get a second chance to make anything right. I couldn't believe it. I thought that if I slept and woke up the next morning, everything would be better. That I will wake up next to Victor again, with his arms around me. That everything will be the way it had always been before. But it didn't happen. I woke up that morning to emptiness and pain. Victor was serious about his words. When he came that morning and saw me on the floor in the living room, he had thrown my things out and pushed me out with it. I couldn't go home to my parents. I couldn't go to Victor's mom's place either. All my friends were also there at the party, and no one was picking my calls. I was literally stranded. It took me a few days before I found a shelter to stay in, and believe me, life has been extremely hard for me. From living in a comfortable space to having to share a hard bed with 5 others, from having a great family to having none at all because I was so stupid and thought that I should be having fun. My life is so meaningless now. I'm nobody. Not a wife and certainly not a mother. Thinking about how my children would feel when they grew up and know the truth, that their mother had been a liar and a cheat. My heart keeps tightening, remembering that I will have no place in their lives anymore. And Victor, it's so hard without him. I thought he was boring, not exciting. I thought that I hated the monotony of how we lived our lives, but I would do anything right now to get back into that usual routine. I will give anything to be able to hug and kiss my kids goodbye when they leave for their grandmother's place. I would be able to prepare dinner while waiting for Victor to get back, so we could eat together. I miss everything so much, and I wish I had really thought things through before I actually did them. The most painful thing is that the person I lost everything for wants no part in my shame. He left and never even called. Not even once. I lost everything for something as minute as a short-term affair. I'm filled with regrets. Every night I go to bed wishing that I could change things back. But then I wake up to the same things again. I know that I will never recover from this. Not now, not ever. And certainly not with everything around me reminding me of the life I used to have, but can never have. Not anymore.